Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 4 to 5. Behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him. And this is speaking of the biblical Edomite, or these so-called white people out here. As it says in Psalms chapter 83, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go forth speaking lies as soon as they be born. You Edomites, every Edomite man, woman, and child was born with a perverse spirit. You were made to be the wicked of the scriptures, and you do everything clean contrary to righteousness, which we can clearly see under your rulership right now. But the just shall live by his faith. Hey, speaking of the righteous born from the womb, the children of Israel, consisting of your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as the Israelite foreigners who look like these heathens today, though for the majority of our people, they're coming in that same wicked spirit as you Edomites. But the elect of the nation of Israel are hearkening back under their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and as it says, they're living by their faith. Verse 5, yeah, also, because he transgresseth by wine, again speaking of the wicked, you Edomites, and that wine being these different philosophies and ideas you push out here to make the people spiritually drunk, such as the idea of democracy, capitalism, communism, socialism, feminism, and that alphabet group beginning with LG, etc., etc. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death. And hey, you Edomites can't keep at home in your lands, which they aren't even your lands to begin with. Your original land is the land of Edom, Mount Seir, or Petra, which you've left those lands and, pushed out the original inhabitants of Europe to inhabit their lands. And over in the United States of America, you took this land from the Gadites, or the so-called Native American Indians of the northern tribes of Israel. And then you go to these different countries and colonize and set up military garrisons to spread your wine to your philosophies, talking about bringing democracy and freedom and women's rights, when all you bring is oppression and tyranny. You set up puppet governments and rape that nation of their resources and bug the people out with your wine. So what do we see? Broken family structures, women out of order and being whores, the children being sodomites and whores as well, and casinos and corporations and McDonald's. Who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And what does that sound like? A one world government, a one government, one religion, one currency, which when you hear about talks of a NEWWORLDORDER, who's the face of the people behind it? Edomites, so-called white people, such as your Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the other elites who are really the leaders behind these different Western powers, and then organizations like the United Nations that push for a global agenda to, again, bring democracy and women's rights and so-called human rights, when the only thing they bring is, again, oppression, stealing people's resources, setting up puppet governments, and pushing these wayward ideas, these wines, to get people on that same wicked vibration. And I opened up the video with these verses to preface an article on archive.is titled, United Nations Preparing to Expand into Single World Government, who gathereth unto himself all peoples and nations and languages under one umbrella, one order. that NW0, that GREATRESET, that fourth industrial revolution, where this Edomite wants everybody on that same vibration as him, thinking the same thing, buying the same thing, doing the same things, and what? Ultimately having that charagma in you, the MARKOFTHEBEAST in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, which is that RFID/NFC MICROCHIPIMPLANT. But let's get into this article. The globalist United Nations is preparing to massively expand its powers to overrule individual sovereign nations with their own customs and practices and position itself as an unelected single world government. His desire, he neither keepeth at home, but goeth abroad, going into these other nations and meddling with their affairs. The UN is planning to unveil proposals for the unprecedented expansion of its influence during the upcoming Summit of the Future conference in 2024. Included in the proposals are policies that would grant the organization an emergency platform during global crisis events. And what do these two individuals look like up here? So-called white people, Edomites. And the one to the left, K. Tissue Schwab, needs no introduction at all. He's the one that coined this whole GREATRESET, that fourth industrial revolution, getting everybody under one accord with digital implementations in them. And he's nothing more than a lower luminary of the higher luminaries. Again, these elites pulling the strings behind the scenes. And these Edomites have a history of going into people's lands and taking away their rights and their customs and their ancient ways and trying to push their ways, their civilization, really decivilization on them. This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 41 to 42. And this is dealing with the Grecian Edomite empires that began after Alexander the Edomite, Alexander the Macedonian's conquests, and then his 4 generals who broke up his empire, started ruling in different parts of the known world. And let's see what the Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes did when he came into power. Moreover, King Antiochus IV, the Edomite, wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and gathereth unto himself all nations and kindreds and tongues, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed, according to the commandment of the king, leave the ways of their forefathers, their ancient customs, to follow after what? Back then, that Grecian way, that becoming Hellenized. And what happened when you read in the times of the Maccabees to the Israelites that didn't want to go along with that Hellenistic way? Antiochus persecuted them and put a lot of them to death, which led to the Maccabean revolt. And as it says in Romans chapter 8, the Spirit beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. The Spirit beareth witness that the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are the children of Israel, because we fit the prophecies. We fit the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28, and the elect fit what it states the elect of the nation of Israel, the remnant, would be doing in these last days. And this also applies to you Edomites. The Spirit beareth witness with your spirit that you are the Edomites, the wicked, that goeth into other lands and push your way onto people, which is exactly what we're reading about with this United Nations proposal, as it says, who are preparing to massively expand its powers to overrule individual sovereign nations and position itself as an unelected single world government. That all should be one people and everyone should leave his laws. Such crises would be determined by the UN itself, and emergencies would be declared by the agency. Should a global emergency be declared by the UN, it would enable the agency to deploy emergency powers to meet climate change goals or enforce restrictions, or even before PANDEMICs. And we saw how the powers that be got down during 2020 to 2021. They damn near shut down the entire planet and got everybody to get those tequila shots. And those that didn't want to were what? Heavily restricted with what they were able to do in society. And that was just a dry run for the main event that we're coming into. The plans also include a digital code of ethics that would allow the UN to censor misinformation to prevent a climate or pestilence related crisis. And what should come to mind with that, if you have an understanding of the scriptures? The famine of the word, because as it says in Matthew chapter 24, verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, which it has been through the unicorn, the internet, being used by the men of the Lord, chiefly GMS or Great Millstone, as well as the brothers that come in the spirit of GMS to spread this gospel from one end of the earth unto the other, waking up the elect across the planet. Read Psalms chapter 19. But as it says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. By simply preaching the words of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, we're revealing who the wicked, the Edomites are, according to the scriptures, what their plans are, and what their end is going to be. So they're scrambling to fulfill their plans and avert biblical prophecy from coming to its fulfillment. And that includes taking the men of the Lord off the highways and byways and taking this word off the internet, labeling it as misinformation and disinformation. The UN has dubbed the spread of information that conflicts with the official climate crisis or pestilence narrative as an infodemic. The Summit of the Future Conference will bring together UN allied nations and non-governmental organizations such as the World Economic Forum, and who's at the head of that? Tissue Schwab, and the World Health Organization, to discuss sweeping policy agendas. The agendas speaks to left-wing initiatives such as increasing the size of government to operate on a global level, digital censorship, and drastic pestilence and climate proposals. These policies signal a concerning expansion of the UN's influence over individual sovereign nations, according to policy experts. By allowing the UN to expand its powers in this way, the unelected organization will be able to overrule the laws of countries around the world to pursue its own globalist agenda, transgressing by his wine, pushing these philosophies and United Nations ideas onto the people, gathering them unto him. And if they don't want to get along, bye-bye. The powers would enable the United Nations to violate Americans' constitutional rights, for example, by stripping citizens of their free speech rights with radical censorship policies. Michael Chamberlain, director of Protect the Public's Trust, a government watchdog organization, warns that the proposals will see America relinquish its sovereignty and allow the UN, WEF, and WHO the power to rule over us. And now I'm going to skip around in this article to get to the main points. The proposal was written by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. It would grant Guterres the authority to declare an emergency platform and extend it on his own whim if the policy was ratified. And he's just another puppet with strings in him attached to the elites. Brett Schaefer, senior researcher in international regulatory affairs at Heritage Foundation, is warning that Guterres and the UN will be able to overrule the leaders of once sovereign nations around the world. It is clearly an effort to empower the Secretary General and the United Nations, Schaefer warns. The emergency platform policy brief would grant the Secretary General standing authority to convene and operationalize a response to a broad array of international crises with minimal consultation with the member states, including the U.S. Another one of the Summit of the Future proposals would seek to develop a code of conduct online that would demonetize and censor and also demonize what the UN considers misinformation. The sweeping censorship policy is titled Information Integrity on Digital Platforms. The code of conduct is informed by work from groups that actively push a censor conservative speech online. The UN and UN-funded Global Disinformation Index, GDI, cite multiple conservative news outlets as sources of misinformation. However, they accredit left-leaning sources as highly reliable according to the GDI's disinformation risk assessment. For example, the GDI gave the New York Times, the Washington Post, and BuzzFeed News low risk levels, while giving the Daily Wire, the New York Post, and the American Conservative high risk levels. From health and gender equality to peace, justice, education, and climate action, measures that limit the impact of mis- and disinformation and hate speech will boost efforts to achieve a sustainable future, the UN Secretary General wrote in the Information Integrity on Digital Platforms proposal. Yeah, that's the main point. But again, they're talking about so-called conservative talking points being censored, which they are, and really any talking point that isn't going along with the narrative. But their main target is the truth of the scriptures. Remember, Matthew 24, verse 14. And that famine of the word will take place. It's all biblical prophecy. This is Amos chapter 8, verses 11 to 13. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water. Though food shortages, famines are coming, where many people globally are going to die off from starvation, but of hearing the words of Yahweh, the famine of the word, where the men of the Lord are no longer going to be on the highways and byways preaching this word, and this word is no longer going to be on the internet, and they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of Yahweh, and shall not find it. In that day shall the fair virgins and young men faint for thirst. The wicked of our people, who spent this time of liberty, when the words of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai were freely available through the prophets, to scoff at the word and cast it behind their back. In that day, they're going to be looking for answers, running around like chickens with their heads cut off during all this chaos of Jacob's trouble, but the only answer they're going to find is judgment, death by pain, as it says in 2nd Ezra chapter 9. So as we always tell you, sincere Akim and Akwat out there, spend this time of liberty while the word is freely available to drink from these rivers of living waters before that spiritual spigot is turned off. I'm going to go to the last little bit in this article. Elsewhere in the UN's proposal are calls for mandatory globalized digital IDs. As Slate News previously reported, Gutierrez demands in the Our Common Agenda report that all individuals under the UN's control would have a digital ID that is linked to their bank account, which is used to buy and sell. With the eventual rollout of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, authorities would be able to monitor and control the spending of citizens in cashless societies. Those whose spending indicates that they pose a risk of contributing toward a major climatic event could be swiftly punished. And what are those digital IDs going to take the form of? Ultimately, those charagmas, the MICROCHIPIMPLANTs, the MOTB in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18. And he causeth all the wicked, the Edomites, beginning with their elites, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, who use organizations like the UN, the WEF, and the WHO to push forward their agendas, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a charagma in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell. They're talking about digital IDs being linked to people's bank accounts. You won't be able to buy or sell, travel abroad, get a job, or do anything, save he that had the charagma, or the name of the BEAST, or the number of his name. Point blank, period. And the fact that they're just being more blatant coming out with this information just lets us know how close we are to the end and how close this devil is to his end in rulership. And he knows it as well. He understands the scriptures and knows that when the nation of Israel wakes back up and begins calling upon the names of their power, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, and also the prophets are out on the highways and byways preaching this word, whatever kingdom that's ruling at the time is going to come to an end. And they also know that they're the biblical Edomites, and what the fate of the Edomites are when they are taken out of power. 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery before they're permanently culled from this planet. Man, woman, and child, young and old, by fire. Read Obadiah chapter 1, verse 18. So this devil's about to pull out all the stops to fulfill his NW0, his GREATRESET, that fourth industrial revolution. Close it out in Revelation chapter 12, verse 12. Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe or destruction to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. Hey, the wicked of our people who are rebellious and don't want to return under their power, but want to live like these heathens, as well as these heathen nations that have no hope of salvation. For the devil is come down unto you, that deceiver Esau Edom, beginning with the elites, that he that causeth all. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. They know that they hath but a short time, so they're speeding up their agendas to try to fulfill that great work of theirs. But the only thing that's going to be fulfilled is biblical prophecy, which involves you being taken out of power and going out of slavery, and the children of Israel being put into power, ruling over you and the rest of these heathen nations in the kingdom of heaven. And it's all quickly to come. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah. And until next time, Shalom.